That's why you called the step drills perfect, because when you do the step drills, these arrows and torques and forces
So
are...
when you have the step drills, then you have everything in place in one a la carte engine.
Dr. Kwon, this is your presentation that you wanted to show us about.
So this is part of the level 1 course that I have. It's golf biomechanics instructor training program, level 1. Let me just briefly introduce the idea of torque, and then I'll compare two different players and see how different they are in terms of torque generation. So this is a golfer here, and then this arrow here shows the ground direction force. So the force coming from the ground to the golfer. Actually, we have two forces acting on the feet, but when you combine these, it's the same to this single one. And then, so this is the force, and then here we have the center of mass of the body. So basically, the body rotates about the center of mass. And then this is the line of action of the force. So the force is acting along this line. And then, so what we want to see is the rotation in the frontal plane. And this line here, which is the perpendicular distance, or the separation between the center of mass and this line of action of the force. This line is called the moment arm, or lever arm. So basically, the torque generated by the ground direction force is this force magnitude times this moment arm here. So either you increase the force or increase the moment arm, then you will be able to increase the torque. But really, in terms of this force here, we don't see much difference among individuals. So force magnitudes remains fairly similar from one golfer to another. But this moment arm can be very different from one golfer to another. So in the next slide, you will see that. So basically, this force times this moment arm will give you the amount of torque generated. Moment means torque. Okay? And then, so in this one, it will generate the counterclockwise torque, because this is the moment arm. And then if you push this end up, then it tends to rotate in the counterclockwise direction. Let's go to this one here. We have here we have two players, player A, player B, who have a similar background. They played on the PGA Tour, and then now on the Champions Tour. Player A and player B, you will see big difference in terms of the body posture. Player A, he's more maintaining a centered pivot here. So the spine is more aligned vertically, upright. In this one, the spine is leaning away from the target. And this is mainly because in this one, if you look at the motion, from this position, the pelvis is turning like this. This goes up and down. With that, is turning more or less this way. So you'll be able to maintain the spine here. The right one from here spinning around. That's why the spine is leaning away from the target. So in terms of motion, very different. And this one going this way versus this turn here. As a result, this golfer has a good interaction with the ground in the horizontal direction. So this is the total force acting on the body. And as you can see, this force arrow is inclined quite a bit toward the target. This is coming from good push, and then coming back here. Push and the recenter. With this action, the golfer is pushing the ground outward. Then there will be a lot of horizontal force acting this way. So using that horizontal force and then vertical force, you will have this good inclination of the force. As a result, you have a long momentum here. So the center of mass is here. The force is passing this way, so you have a long momentum. However, on this side, the force is less inclined, first of all. And then it is passing close to the center of mass. Because in this one, the butt is sticking out toward the target. So the center of mass is not separated from the force arrow that much. So this golfer has a really short momentum here. So both are at the top of X1. And as a result, this red line at the top, this is the amount of torque this golfer generates, player A generates. But player B only generates this much torque down. You see how big the difference is. So this golfer, if you look at the arrow here, the lengths are similar. That means the force magnitudes are similar. But because of difference in the moment arm here, this golfer generates a lot larger torque at the beginning of the downswing. So if the torque is, if already large torque is acting on the body, then it's easier to accelerate the body in the downswing earlier. But this golfer, because the torque is small, even throughout the downswing, he's not generating that much torque compared to the red line. So so player B has a definite disadvantage in terms of interaction with the ground. But that's why the way we move and the shifted, have a good initial shift, and then feel of a more reverse pivot posture. That will actually give you more upright spine position. With this action here, you're actually pushing the ground horizontally, so there will be more horizontal force acting. So that's why the separation increases, then generates a lot larger torque.
Which translates to club head speed.
So basically, this magnitude of this peak torque is significantly correlated to club head speed. So when you use the stepping-like action, generally what I want to see is this kind of force generation. During the backswing, initially you will generate torque in the clockwise direction, so in this view, so which will promote backswing. But during the backswing, the direction of the torque changes. So earlier we talked about the positive aspect of a faster backswing. So when you have faster backswing, in order to generate faster backswing, you have to push the ground harder, right? With that, when you generate the faster motion, later you have to slow this down. And then this portion is used to slow down the body. So still motion is still going backward, but your torque is acting already in the downward direction. So while the motion is going this way, the torque is acting in the opposite direction. Using this, you will slow down the backswing motion actively. And then when the backswing is completed here, as you go into the downswing, that same torque is now used in acceleration in this direction. So that's why you need to have a really active backswing and then generate a large torque here. And automatically you will have a large torque here at the top. Then you will start the downswing with a lot better initial condition.
Dr. Kwon, can you show us, like, imagine this is an arrow, okay, so it's pointing this way. And go through the whole swing of where the inclination would be at the start.
Initially, during the backswing, as you have good push, the force acts like this. It's acting close to the right foot. It's inclined, your center of mass is about here, but still it will give you this momentum. This will give you torque in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then as this progresses, now it starts inclining this way, passes through the center of mass, and then going this way here.
So it starts off to the center and up, and then it inclines towards the target.
Inclines and then passing this way
Uh-huh.
during the backswing, still during the back. Now to EPR, endopelvic rotation, about this position. Then top of backswing, even more inclination here, top of backswing. And then once you pass the top of backswing, then what happens is where the force X is moving to the leader foot, and then this force becomes more vertical, and then the magnitude increases.
Okay. So it never goes back away from, like...
No, not back.
Oh, okay. So it inclines towards the target and then up.
Yeah. But if you keep moving like this, then you will see the force arrow going like this.
Yeah, that's good.
Because with that, you will confine your motion.
So show us that kind of reverse pivot feeling at the top that can give you a correct inclination.
When you are here, instead of pelvis staying here, when you have this reverse pivot position, the pelvis is shifting this way more, so the whole center of mass is shifting this way more. So for the same inclination of force here, if the center of mass stays more this way, then you have longer momentum. But if your butt is sticking out this way, then because of the center of mass moves this way, and then you have a short momentum.
And that's why you called the step drills perfect, because when you do the step drills, these arrows and torques and forces
So
are...
when you have the step drills, then you have everything in place in one a la carte menu. Okay. So during the backswing, we want to have the force acting more close to the trail foot here. But in the downswing, we want to have this force acting more close to the leader foot here. Naturally, by having stepping motion, this will move automatically. Because when you have more force on this side, then this goes close to the trail foot. When you have more force acting on the leader foot, it will move to the leader foot. So the position of where the force is acting depends on how much force is acting on each side. So if you have more force acting on this side, then you shift to the leader foot. So we'll automatically have motion of this point back and forth when you have stepping. And then when you have good interaction with the ground in the horizontal direction, then the force inclines quite a bit here. It will give you a long momentum. And then when you shift to this way, then the center pressure, this is called center pressure, but it quickly moves to the leader foot. And then now, because you're pushing the ground hard with the left leg, it grows. Now the magnitude matters. Why? Because you will have a shorter momentum compared to this one. Now you have a bit shorter momentum, but because now you have a larger force, still you will be able to maintain good amount of torque. That's how it goes. And then when you have the shifting motion, and then stepping motion here, and then kick hard with the left leg, then you have everything you need.
So, Dr. Kwon, what do you see like in the body? We don't have to go through every part, but how do people decide like, okay, this is something that I want to use in my swing that is good for power, and this is something that's good for stability, and how do those things get crossed up the wrong way sometimes?
What happens is in the body, so we have many segments and all connected through the joints, right? And to me, pelvis is the central segment. So the legs are connected to the pelvis, and then the upper body is essentially connected to the pelvis. So pelvis is a part of the lower body, but at the same time is part of the upper body as well. And then mainly the rotational motion is coming from thorax and above. So mid trunk section here, this is a good place where we can use as the hub. So the rotation is mainly coming from this part, but then the lower body serves as the locomotive. So it will generate the force that you need. But then the upper body is taking advantage of it and then produce the necessary rotational movement. So what's typically happening in these days that a lot of people try to use the upper body for both purposes, generating the speed, and then also the impact control or direction control. But if you use the lower body more for the speed generation, and the upper body for the actual motion and the direction control, then you will have this role sharing.
Thanks for watching, guys. I am continuing to add things to BeBetterGolf.net/premium, where you can see all the footage from when the first time I went to Dr. Kwon, and then also I'm adding all the footage from this recent golf school. So you'll see the entire conversation about the science of the step drills that we just did, and then also this full conversation about segmenting the golf swing that we're doing here. Exciting news that we have sold out the first San Diego Be Better Golf School with Dr. Kwon, but we still have spaces for the weekend school on the 19th and 20th of March. So go to BeBetterGolf.net/school and you'll see stuff there. So go to those two places, BeBetterGolfNet.premium for lots more exclusive content, and check out BeBetterGolf.net/school to get information about working directly with us. We really had a blast at the last school, and it's going to be an amazing time. And the word that kept getting thrown around at our last school was transformative. I think transformative is going to really define it. And hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Torque. But if you fail to move the center of pressure to this side, then everything is screwed up. So there are certain roles that all these body parts do. Obviously, if I explain everything this way, then you'll be bored soon. So that's why I try to put all these things together into a set of drills, and they have a holistic approach. But that's why we're using the step drills.